Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life is now being banned. It is not for sale from a store called Whitcoulls in New Zealand. Apparently, there are 56 outlets. It's one of the bigger book outlets in New Zealand. According to News Hub in New Zealand, the controversial Canadian professor visited Adaria in February, weeks before a gunman killed 50 people and injured dozens more at 2 mosques in Christchurch. Although Peterson's book promotes self-help rather than violence or racism, he was photographed in New Zealand embracing a fan, wearing a T-shirt emblazoned with the words, "I'm a proud Islamophobe," along with a list of various inflammatory accusations about Muslims. The shirt just says something like, "I'm a proud Islamophobe," and then lists off a bunch of terrible things that it attributes to Islam. He says, "I'm a proud Islamophobe. I'm against pedophilia, rape, wife-beating, misogyny, etc., 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 etc. I'm for the freedom of the individual." And Jordan is just standing next to this guy in a picture. He isn't embracing him. He's taking pictures the way that Jordan normally takes pictures. Now, I have something to say about this on a personal level. This is the dumbest reason to ban somebody of all time. Jordan Peterson, I am sure. I mean, he spoke something like 100 times last year. And every time he speaks, he's got a couple thousand people there. And he takes pictures with hundreds of those people. At this point, Jordan has probably taken legitimately hundreds of thousands of pictures with fans. I speak a lot of places too. I've legitimately taken, I would imagine at this point, 30 to 40,000 pictures with fans. I don't remember a single damn shirt anybody was wearing. And unless somebody walked up to me wearing a full-on swastika or a full-on hammer and sickle shirt for some reason, I'm not examining their shirt. If it's got a lot of text, I'm not reading the shirt because that's not my job. Is Jordan supposed to now screen people's shirts for the people he takes pictures with? How is it? What? This is the new public standard. The new public standard is if you take a picture with a person who is a fan and you're a public figure and that fan turns out to be a terrible person, then somehow your book gets banned. If that's the case, we're going to need to know why it is that the Orlando Pulse shooter's father, you'll recall, showed up at a Democratic rally. That Democrat was not banned, right? We didn't say the Democrat was a bad guy. We said, what association does he have with this person? If you've ever been to one of these rope lines where you shake the hand of a prominent person, you're in the picture for legitimately about 3 seconds flat. And so Whitcoulls is banning Jordan Peterson's non-Islamophobic, non-white supremacist book on the basis that a person who wore a shirt that they find offensive took a picture with him. Whitcoulls doesn't specify the exact reason for dumping Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, a book that has sold some 3 million copies. It's probably the biggest bestseller years in the nonfiction lists. They say this, quote, "Unfortunately, 12 Rules for Life is currently unavailable, which is a decision that Whitcoulls has made in light of some extremely disturbing material being circulated prior, during, and after the Christchurch attacks. As a business which takes our responsibilities to our communities very seriously, we believe it would be wrong to support the author at this time. Apologies that we're not able to sell it to you, but we appreciate your understanding." This is insanity. So you're fighting neo-Nazism by banning books. You're fighting white supremacism by banning books. Jordan is an active fighter against white supremacism. I've spent time with Jordan. We've had discussions on this issue. This is patently ridiculous. But when you decide that you are going to quash freedom of speech in favor of supposed safety, and this is not going to guarantee safety in any case. There's no way that banning Jordan Peterson's book from sale in New Zealand is preventing shootings. It's utter craziness. By the way, other books that continue to be on sale at Whitcoulls include Mein Kampf, which has to do with white supremacism, guys, and also a book called, it's like Jordantology by Vox Day, an outspoken white supremacist, and Milo Yiannopoulos, an alt-right troll. That book is still on sale, apparently, at Whitcoulls. So just very, very solid stuff here from the left. So their solutions to a mass shooting are to do, by the way, exactly what the shooter wanted. The shooter says in his manifesto, and I have not quoted his manifesto at length because I don't wish to give it credibility, but since the left now insists that the manifesto is a rationale to ban books, it seems worthwhile pointing out that the shooter explicitly suggested that this be done. The shooter explicitly said he was attempting to drive a gun debate in the United States that would cause gun confiscation and therefore violence. He says this explicitly in the manifesto, and so the left immediately falls for it. Now again, you want to make the case for why guns ought to be confiscated, make the case. But it has to be a logical case, and it can't be based on, you don't care enough if you disagree with me. That's simple absurdity on a vast scale. Now, speaking of Jordan Peterson, he's also being banned now from Cambridge University. And this does speak to the left's desire to shut down anybody who is remotely successful on the non-left. Jordan happens to be a relatively conservative guy, although he doesn't vote in U.S. elections because he's Canadian. But Jordan is now being deplatformed. They're trying to remove his book in New Zealand, and now they've removed a fellowship offer at the University of Cambridge. And so the question becomes, seriously, who on the non-left will the left accept? Is there anybody on the non-left that the left will accept as part of a rational conversation? You know, somebody who doesn't just agree with them on everything. And I mean on a permanent basis. I don't mean on a temporary basis. So there's something that happens in right-wing circles where if you say something that is heterodox with conservatism, for just a moment, you get strange new respect. Lots of strange new respect. Lots of offers to come on MSNBC and lots of offers to be part of discussions and cocktail hours from people who are very prominent, and you're treated very nicely. And if you do that for long enough, then maybe they'll invite you to a few more cocktail parties. But then if you do something that snaps back into the reality of conservatism, if you say anything conservative, then they come after you. So David Frum, who has mirrored a lot of the left's preferences on policy as well as on President Trump, David Frum was welcome in left circles until he wrote a column at The Atlantic on immigration, and then all of a sudden it turned into that typical right-wing racist David Frum. And it's the same thing with anybody who is prominent. The left, they've shrunk the Overton window to the point where no one is inside the Overton window except people with whom they agree. I challenge the left to name somebody on the right who they actually respect or think is not a bigot. You're going to have to name some people. Really name them. People were calling David French an Islamophobe the other day. David French of National Review. David French is a member of the U.S. Army. He served in the Army in Iraq, fighting to save the lives of Muslims from radicals. But he's an Islamophobe. I mean, the left will legitimately throw anyone out once they realize that the person is conservative. If they want to have honest conversations, this is not the way to do it. I saw this over the last 24, 48 hours with regard to Andrew Yang. So Andrew Yang is a Democratic presidential candidate. And I'd said on my show yesterday that Andrew Yang I found sort of interesting. At least the guy has ideas. I don't agree with a lot of his ideas, but I'd love to have him on the Sunday special, and we can discuss. So immediately the internet picks this up. They're going to have a debate. We're not having a debate. We're having a discussion, which is what rational people do. Unless it is a set-up debate that is designed to be a debate, we like to call this thing discussion. And if you watch my Sunday specials, which come out on Sundays, I've had many people who disagree with me on a variety of subjects, from Michael Shermer to Sam Harris, on the Sunday special. It happens a lot. Okay, and that would be true if Andrew Yang comes on. So Andrew Yang expressed interest in coming on the podcast, and I said, well, that'll be great. Immediately, he was hit with a wave of, how dare you even sit down with Shapiro? How dare you even have a conversation with Shapiro? It was the same thing with my friend Michael Shermer. Michael and I disagree radically when it comes to religion. Okay, Michael had me on his podcast to discuss my new book, The Right Side of History, which, for the record, is now #1 on Amazon, the #1 best-selling book on planet Earth. He was hit with a wave of vitriol. How dare you legitimize Shapiro? Okay, name me the right-winger you would legitimize. Really, if you're on the left. So Jordan Peterson is out. I'm out. People like Dave Rubin, who's not even truly conservative. Dave considers himself a classical liberal, more on the libertarian scale. He's out. Even folks who are momentarily beloved like David Frum, if they put their head above the waterline, they get clubbed. Kevin Williamson is out. David French is out. Who's left, guys? Really, and the answer is nobody's left. And that's how many people on the radical left and increasingly on the mainstream left want it. Here's the story about Jordan. So Jordan said that he would be a visiting fellow. He announced he would be a visiting fellow at the University of Cambridge Divinity School, which makes perfect sense. He's one of the world's leading authorities and one of the most popular speakers when it comes to biblical meaning on planet Earth. He has a series on biblical meaning that has 10 million views on YouTube. That's better than any of the other professors over at Cambridge University. On Wednesday, Cambridge's administration announced they had rescinded the invitation following a public outcry from students and professors. A Cambridge spokesperson told the UK Guardian, quote, Cambridge is an inclusive environment, and we expect all our staff and visitors to uphold our principles. There is no place here for anyone who cannot. So what principles did Jordan violate? Well, he violated the principle that you should be forced by the government to use a transgender person's preferred pronouns. So if you disagree with the basic idea that we should falsify pronouns, then you are no longer welcome to teach at University of Cambridge. And also, they say that he is not sufficiently woke when it comes to feminism. This is the case that they are making. So they renounced their initial offer and deplatformed Jordan. They removed the offer after realizing that he is who he has always been. I'm against this even when it happens on the left. I controversially argued that James Gunn should not be removed from the Guardians of the Galaxy series for a series of bad old tweets, jokes about pedophilia and such. Because everybody knew about those tweets when he was hired, so why are you firing him? I said the same exact thing about Sarah Jeong. She had a bunch of racist tweets. She was hired by the New York Times. They knew about all the racist tweets. And then there's a big outcry. And I said she shouldn't be fired. They knew who she was when they hired her. Well, Jordan doesn't keep his views a secret. Everybody knows this stuff. Everybody knows that Jordan holds these views on transgender pronouns. It's one of the reasons he is very, very famous. Jordan put out a statement about all of this. He says that he began discussions with Cambridge in November. He enjoyed his conversations, and he was looking forward to giving speeches to students about the nature and meaning of the Bible. He says, it's not going to make much difference to my future in some sense. I have more opportunities at the moment than I can keep track of, let alone, let's say, capitalize on. It's a complex and surreally fortunate position to occupy, and I'm not taking it for granted, but it happens to be true. In the fall, therefore, I will produce the lectures I plan to produce on Exodus, regardless of whether they occur in the UK or in Canada or elsewhere, and they will attract whatever audience remains interested. But I think it is deeply unfortunate that the authorities at the Divinity School in Cambridge decided that kowtowing to an ill-informed, ignorant, and ideologically addled mob trumped participating in an extensive online experiment in mass Christian and psychological education. Given the continuing decline of church attendance, the rise in atheistic or agnostic sentiment, the increasing irrelevance of theological education, and the collapse in interest in such matters among young people, wiser and more profound decisions might have been made. He says, he adds that, he says, I wish them the continued decline in relevance over the next few decades that they deeply and profoundly and diligently work toward and deserve, which is exactly right. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Stephen Toop of University of Cambridge, gave a statement, and here's what Jordan quoted from it. One very specific aspect of openness is being inclusive and open to diversity in all its forms, diversity of interests and beliefs, of gender, of religion, of sexual identity, of ethnicity, and of physical ability. Yet obviously the left does not believe in such diversity. The only diversity they care about is racial and ethnic diversity, and maybe the diversity of the intersectionally woke. It's really pathetic. And using a shooting in Christchurch that had nothing to do with New Zealand to deplatform, and that had nothing to do with Jordan Peterson, to deplatform Jordan Peterson, is truly astonishingly ridiculous. And this is we often say this sort of stuff. This is the world the left wants. If this is the world the left wants, it's a really ugly world. A world where books are banned and you don't have a gun to protect yourself. Some pretty
are that he is the male, even though it is not politically correct to assume his gender. Okay guys, that was it for this video. Please like, subscribe and share.